Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here, back live and in the studio. Month-long trip, the Working Class Heroes radio tour. And if you missed any of that, thericksmithshow.com is where you go and pick up all of that. But today, Election Day, the fun, the entertainment that... You got to find something positive out of this. Because, look, we already know what's going to happen. Republicans are going to whine and complain that where they lose, that the election was stolen, but in places that they win, worked perfectly to plan. Yes, it's that kind of situation. Because, after all, they believe they should win every election. And, look, I'll be honest. When I was playing sports, I believed that I was going to win every game, too. The difference was at the end, when you looked up at the scoreboard, you go, I lost. Mad, angry, work harder next time, but shook hands, congratulated the other side, and moved on. That no longer the GOP. We're going to find out what kind of a country we are, though. We're going to see if voters are going to come out, especially in my state of Pennsylvania. Hopefully they will speak with a unifying voice that will move us in a more positive direction, or we're going to end up, the conspiracy theories that I'm already envisioning coming out. As on election night, I had someone tell me that Doug Mastriano is going to win as governor of Pennsylvania, and even if he doesn't, we're going to win. And I don't know what that means. But a couple of things possible tonight. And we're going to find out. Is this going to be Rovember, as we were told it's going to be? Are the women folk going to be angry, going to come out and vote? They've registered. Is this going to be a Kansas kind of moment, where the polls are way off? I mean, they were way off in Kansas. Is this going to be that moment where women come out and say, you know what, we demand our rights? Or is this going to be one of those things where, we're just going to whimper through? So potentially, one of three different scenarios is going to happen, work its way out. We know. Either going to be the classic tsunami that you see like we saw in 94, the Gingrich Revolution, 2006 when Bush got whacked, or 2010 when the Tea Party folk all came out and crazy folk like. We're going to see that, where even the closest of races are going to tip towards the Republicans, and you're going to pick up seats in places that they never even imagined. Is that going to happen? Will we see a 40-seat House swing? I don't think so, but we'll see. Is it going to be kind of, just a wave kind of thing, a little wave, not the red tsunami, not the red beating that the right is fantasizing over. But, they're going to pick up the close races and maybe a surprise here or there, which is kind of more where my thinking is. Or is it going to be, small advantage for Republicans? They're going to, things are going to break for Republicans in some fashion. We're going to see how it plays out as we count the votes. Now, we're in my state of Pennsylvania. You already know the votes will not be counted this evening. It's going to take a couple of days because we have this weird little thing that we do here, like not counting the mail-in ballots until the polls close, which seems kind of dumb to me, but it's what we do. So the theory, the thought, what's been told to me is that the belief is that Mastriano will be ahead at the end of the night, much like happened in 2020 with Trump, who was way ahead, I think 600,000 votes ahead on election night. But then they counted all the ballots, the ones that people mailed in, and he then lost. Well, they learned the lesson. They're not going to allow that to happen, is what's been explained to me. They're going to come out forcefully and demand that they win. Like a child, slamming their feet on the ground. So it's going to be interesting to see. Now, this election, I'm hoping there'll be something that comes out of it, because in our tour and the places that we went and the folks that we talked to, the economy, jobs, infrastructure, those were the important things. None of the divisive stuff. But the other theme, the big one, the future of democracy in this country, the future of this wonderful experiment of self-governance, whether we're going to respect what comes out of the ballot box. And I don't know how we're going to break, because there are so many election deniers running for office. There are so many of them. And I'm assuming, again, courts are going to be full, because we are so divided. And I keep coming back to this moment of, we have got to be talking to each other and moving on a set of policies. Because look, the economy, everyone overwhelmingly, the economy. You look at the two parties. The Republicans have done everything in their foolhardy best to make it harder for working people to get ahead. Now, them's the facts, folks. Tax cuts for the wealthy, tax cuts for big corporations, and, well, nothing for the working class. Democrats are talking about rebuilding manufacturing, investing in infrastructure, strengthening worker protections, giving people the ability to join and form unions, to move toward that American dream. Now, again, I come back to what I've been saying all along. Trump did a masterful job of taking credit for stuff that he didn't do, or couldn't do, or was never going to do. Biden's actually done some stuff that he's not even bothering taking credit for. Got to do a better job in messaging. Now, again, today, the fun part of today is going to watch all the complaining and the whining and the lawsuits the conspiracy theories. I was watching the F channel for a little bit. Could only stand a little bit of it. But the F channel, all in conspiracy of, Arizona. They're cheating in Arizona. The machines. In fact, you look at the reality that our Justice Department sent, basically watchers to 24 states. Palm Beach County, Florida, Maricopa County, Arizona, Cuyahoga County, Ohio, where I grew up. And you don't send watchers to Cuyahoga County if I don't know, unless you think that there's going to be some shenanigans, not by the people voting, but by the people attempting to intimidate voters. Because I had someone reach out and say, you know what? The place where I vote, first time ever, saw a constable in uniform at the door. And you go, why would you do that? Well, it's that imagery. Now, the Justice Department did send out these monitors to 24 states. DeSantis in Florida attempted to block the monitors. Because of course. Of course. Now, here in Pennsylvania also, I got to throw this out there. Polls were closed at 8, except in Luzerne County, where those will be open until 10 p.m. Evidently, some of the machines ran out of paper. I don't know how you do that. Could be a good sign, though, for Democrats, because generally when more people vote, Democrats do a little bit better. We will see. But I guess a number of the polling locations ran out of paper. Again, don't know how that happens. But tonight, going to be watching some of the key races right here in my home right now, Pennsylvania. The two big ones, Senate and governor. I'm feeling a little bit confident about the governor's race. I know Mastriano is going to want to declare victory tonight, and I know my Mastriano fan friends, they want to grab the mantle and hold on to it, but I don't think the votes are going to be there in big numbers. I'm expecting about a 5% win for Shapiro, which I think is going to hold. I'm not so confident on John Fetterman. I'm hoping the folks come out and vote, but I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Going to take a quick break. Right back with J.D. Scholten. He is a candidate out in Iowa in the 1st House District out there for their state house. We met him along the Working Class Heroes Tour. Quick break. Right back with JD. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our Labor History in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So along the Working Class Heroes radio tour, we stopped off in Sioux City, Iowa, and what a great stop that was. And I want to thank our good friend J.D. Schulten for putting together what was an incredible opportunity to speak with a wide variety of residents that came out to talk with us. That's why I had to get JD to come on. He's also the political director for the Mike Franken campaign. Let's hope good thoughts for the Admiral here as we count the votes. JD, thanks for taking time for us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm just on a little bit of cloud 9 right now.
Well, congratulations. I know that you ran unopposed, but congratulations. You are now the representative for the good folks there in Iowa's first House district in the state House. Good on you, man.
Thank you. And even though I didn't have an opponent, it's one of those things where I don't take anything for granted. Having run for Congress twice and losing both times, it's a lot of effort went into winning this seat, and even without having an opponent, I'll say that.
So what's the feeling there tonight as you start counting the ballots? What's the feeling like?
With it being a full moon and just kind of everything, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think there's something happening out here, and you don't know how much it got tapped into or how much it didn't. And it started last fall with the October strikes, and then kind of came through the spring and all summer. And, I think there's a lot of frustration happening out there amongst voters. And I think there's a lot of voters who are up for grabs. And so I know as part of the Franken campaign, we did all we could to try to connect with folks and bring them on board. I hope we were good enough for that. And I just, coming out of this, I think there's so much opportunity to be a Democrat as a reformer. And that's what some of the things I plan to do at the State House. And hopefully other folks can jump on board.
What's the message coming out of this, do you think? I mean, I know we haven't seen the outcome, but, I've been saying for some time, and we talked about this extensensively in Sioux City, that I think Democrats need to get back to the core issues of it's the economy, stupid, of bringing jobs back, of fighting for investments in infrastructure, and of course strengthening unions and organizing the workplace again.
I mean, what I see on the ground is working class folks are struggling, and that's one thing where I don't think we could talk enough about, like inflation and corporate greed and monopolies and all that, because it all ties together, especially here when so much of our business is related to agribusiness and it's so concentrated. And so I'm 100% on board with that. Build that inclusive group. I love to talk about Dollar General and building that Dollar General coalition. And folks of all different backgrounds, it's rural, urban, coming together and just working for working class folks. I think there's an opportunity, and Dems are really missing on it. And I feel that there needs to be a shift in the Democratic Party. And I think there needs to be a shift at the top of leadership. We have a lot of folks who I feel just have been in either DC too long or just, I have some ideas about what I want to do at the state level, but I think nationally we have to do better. And I think we need to look in the mirror after this election, regardless of what happens tonight, and just show that, hey, we can be better.
Yeah. Now, of course, the race that you're looking for, the Grassley Franken race. How we feeling about that tonight?
I mean, from the very get-go, we know it was going to be a tough opportunity, but I thought we've put ourselves in a position to win. From day one, we always knew that there was a lot of things that had to break our way, and several of those broke our way. And so we're just waiting, and we did all we could, and we're just very, very excited about waiting to happen. And unfortunately, I'm not with most of the team. They're all down in Des Moines. I'm here in Sioux City, but it was an honor to work for Admiral Franken. He's a heck of a guy, and I hope we can pull it off tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I had the opportunity to spend a little time with Admiral Franken and in Cedar Rapids, had a really nice conversation. I actually sat and had a beer with the guy. One of those things, hey, he's a guy I'd like to have a beer with. Yeah, he is, but he's the kind of guy I would like to have in the Senate as well.
Absolutely. I saw just today about an agriculture monopoly, fertilizer. The four companies that control, or the top companies that control it, are manipulating the prices and hurting our farmers. It'd be great to have an actual senator who just doesn't talk about it, but actually takes on some of this. And so, I'm.
Why didn't we hear enough of that? Why didn't we? Let me pose this as a question. Did we hear enough of what's causing the inflation during this election cycle? Because again, we keep coming back to the reality is it wasn't a switch in the Oval Office that Joe Biden flipped on and said, hey, we're going to have inflation. It's the corporate monopolies. It's these CEOs who have saw an opportunity to gouge us. It's what's going on in Ukraine. It's a lot of things, not flipping a switch in the Oval Office.
I just I'm frustrated with the Democratic Party about not doing it enough, but that's one thing being an elected official now, that will give me opportunity to have more of a voice on this. And so I'm very much keeping this at the forefront of my message and everything, and I'm hoping other Democrats will too.
Yeah, so outside, and you've also got a governor's race going on, and we had the opportunity to spend a little time with Deidre DeGier. I thought she was fantastic. What are her chances this evening?
They didn't. I wasn't part of that team, so I don't know the inner circles of it, but it was a tough race for them. I think Deidre is an amazing speaker. Regardless of what happens tonight, I really hope that she stays active, because I think she's a huge asset for the Democratic Party. I hope they sneak out a victory, but it's one of those things where I just a lot of unknowns here in Iowa right now.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, we spent a lot of time in your state, and education was like front and foremost on everybody's mind, because
it blows my mind. We have a Republican senator who's running against public education on the platform. I don't even know how that's even possible. Our state quarter is foundation in education. How is that even possible? And yet here we are, and the fact that Deidre isn't going to win in a landslide just absolutely blows my mind.
Now, you had said something to me while we were in Sioux City that has been stuck with me. You said that right-wing talk radio basically radicalized your state. Is this not the place where Democrats have to put some shoulder into and reclaiming some of these rural areas and going back in and talking about messaging? Because look, progressive policies are extraordinarily popular. Even if progressives aren't, those policies, our policies are very popular.
I mean, for 4 years running in Northwest Iowa, when I stopped at a diner or wherever, or a mechanic shop, and you just talk policy, everyone shakes their head, they nod their heads, and they're like, yes. And then they're like, are you a Democrat or Republican? You mentioned you're a Democrat, and all of a sudden their eyes change, or their face change. That's where the brand is at. And so we got to capitalize on this moment where our policies are winning. Our policies are very popular, and yet the Democratic brand is hurt. I mean, we're seeing it in polling all across the nation. So there's polling that shows, as a Democrat, we think these Republicans are so radicalized. Well, the polling shows that most of America thinks both parties are radicalized. And so how do we come out of that? How do we improve our brand? And that's something that, there's only so much we can do in Iowa. And so much as a statewide candidate or what I could do as a state house candidate. But when the brand is so diminished, we have to figure out ways to do that. We have to figure out ways to win campaigns. You know, the way that it's structured so much, very consultant heavy. You ask, like most of federal races, you ask the people, the candidates, they're talking to two major people, or two people mostly. One, it's consultants, and two, it's donors. The people who's missing are the regular folks, the voters. That's who we need to connect more. And the amount of money that we're raising online and everything, we absolutely have to change the way we're campaigning.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Last line of questioning. I know you got a lot to get to this evening. Nationally, what are we looking at? What races are you paying attention to? Which ones do you think are important?
Well, I'm looking at House races in different districts. Excuse me. To kind of see like bellwether stuff. You know, we have a race here. Cindy Axney is a two-time incumbent with redistricting and everything. Does she keep a seat? Are we going to flip one of the seats on the eastern side of Iowa? But I mean, I'm also looking at the major Senate races that I think most of the people are looking at as well. Secretary of State races and Secretary or State Treasurer. Those are unique seats that I'm very focused on as well. When we talk about where we're going to invest when combating climate change, state treasurers have a huge responsibility. So I'm very interested in focusing on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, the one thing that Trump, if you give him credit for anything, made us keenly aware of how important attorney generals are, secretaries of state, and other positions that, you know, most people didn't even know it existed.
Right.
We now know how important they are.
Yep, exactly. So
yeah.
Anyhow, well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for all you're doing, and keep it up, and happy to chat any other time.
Good stuff, JD. Appreciate it. Good luck tonight.
Thank you. Take care.
Good stuff, JD Schulten. You know, look, at the end of this, you know, the reality is people got to get out to vote in those places where you're still able to. And if you didn't vote today, tomorrow, no complaining. That's kind of my rule. If you didn't vote, you don't get to complain, because some of the results are coming in, and I'll be honest, I'm not all that happy. Ohio, JD Vance is up 50-49 there, with about 49% of the vote. So it's going to be a long night there. Here in Pennsylvania, with about 18%, John Fetterman's up 60-37. Let's hope that trend continues. Georgia, you know, some good news out of Georgia, with about 67% of the vote. Raphael Warnock up over Herschel Walker 51-47. Let's hope that continues in those directions. Still going to be a long night of counting the votes, a long night of well, hoping. I know there are some who are also praying. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. You got a thought, you got a question, you got something on your mind. If there's a race that you're watching, there's a bunch of, I got like a whole list of seats that I'm looking at. As of now, though, however, it looks like the House, there have just been 3 seats flipped so far. So still, Dems haven't lost the House yet. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. Remember, if you miss any portion of the program, download the podcast. Wherever you get yours, you'll find ours. Back after this. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1945. That was the day workers in Windsor, Ontario, walked off the job in a general strike to support strikers at Ford Motor Company. 20,000 CIO workers brought the city's industrial production to a complete standstill. 11,000 members of UAW Local 200 had been on strike against Ford since September 12th. They demanded a union shop and dues checkoff. As the strike wore on, picket lines swelled every day, with as many as 1,000 to 2,000 amassing at the gates to stop scabs. Then, on this day, more than 9,000 additional members of Amalgamated UAW Local 195, working at 27 area plants, joined them in support. Thousands of picketers set up a blockade at Ford's riverfront plant that tied up the city's transit system. Sandwich Street was choked with cars, buses, and trucks. More than 1,000 cars were bumper to bumper in an endless traffic jam as strikers worked to prevent a police attack on the picket lines. The 2-mile blockade and general strike were in effect for 2 days until the government threatened to send in federal troops to aid provincial and Canadian police. Thousands continued to picket. By November 12th, AFL and CIO leaders throughout Canada were calling for a work holiday to show support. Then, on December 19th, workers agreed to binding arbitration. Supreme Court Justice Ivan Rand was assigned the case. He ruled against the closed shop, but for dues checkoff. He put forth a series of rules and penalties regarding labor disputes that would come to be known as the Rand Formula. It has served as the basis for labor relations and collective bargaining in Canada ever since. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
America exists today as a bizarre anomaly. We profess to be an electoral democracy, yet we are ruled by a governmental plutocracy. One especially gross example of this incongruity is the overwhelming power of big money over the people's will. By a wide margin, Americans of all political stripes want to ban the distorting force of huge electoral campaign donations by favor-seeking corporations and ultra-rich elites. Yet, nothing. National and state lawmakers take the plutocratic money and promptly bury democratic reforms that would stop the gusher of corrupt cash. An analysis of donations in this year's congressional races shows that this plutocratic perversion of our politics and government has reached absurd levels. Historian Nancy McLean and public interest advocate Frank Clemente have documented that the 2 main super PACs trying to put Republicans in Congress got about half of their $188 million election fund from just 27 billionaires. Also, a corporate front that backs GOP candidates, Club for Growth, got nearly $35 million from only 3 billionaires. Thanks to years of congressional stonewalling and the steady partisan stacking of our top courts with corporate ideologues, there is essentially no limits on this purchase of lawmakers. Indeed, the biggest donors are even allowed to undermine democracy in secret, not revealing their identity. Lawmakers elected with this money not only support the billionaires' special interest agenda, which the people don't want, but also are fierce opponents of any reforms to increase voter participation in our governing process, which people do want. This is Jim Hightower saying that's why, for example, efforts to guarantee every eligible American a constitutional right to vote have not moved forward in Congress, even though the great majority of people favor it.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. Let's go to the phones. Got Alice on one. Alice, how we doing today?
We're doing good. How about you?
I am great. Did you vote today?
Oh, you know I did.
Of course. That was a dumb question.
It was indeed. Remember, I'm the one who managed to talk my husband into voting after all these years, and he voted for the first time in 2020, so, which was one of the reasons why I was calling. He had signed up for the lifelong mail-in ballot thing.
Right.
Well, we never got one, okay? So it's like the second week of October, and I called our county election office, and I said, hey, my husband wants to know where his mail-in ballot is. Well, you'll have to fill out an application. I said, I'm going to tell you what. We filled one out for a lifelong ballot. We didn't get one. Well, you'll have to, so go online, fill this thing out, zip it off, to him that way. They finally send him a ballot. We no sooner got that ballot, and I helped him, fill it out to make sure that it's, everything's done correctly. Then, and I went through the caller log on the phone, 27 different times we got called by some conservative QAnon outlet against something against voter fraud, wanting to know, to talk to him, to know, did he request a mail-in ballot? So, like the first 3 or 4 times, we were polite.
Right.
And by the time we got to number 17 and upward, I'm going, you do realize, right? You already called here to the 27th time. I lost it. And I said to my husband, here's those crazy QAnon nuts calling to talk to you again. I mean, I got rude. And I handed him the phone, and he'd had enough. And he said, what the hell do you people want now? And they hung up on him, and they never called back.
Well, maybe that's how you have to deal with them then.
Oh, my gosh, it was just ridiculous. So today, I've told you our little county is, red as can be and whatnot. So when I went to vote today, I was speaking to some of the ladies, and 3 of them, the poll workers, are Republicans. So I was telling them about it. And they said, well, that's just insane. And I said, it is, isn't it? I said, we need to do something about this. So it kind of filled me with a little bit of hope that they actually thought that it was crazy, too.
Yeah. Well, good on you for voting, and good on you for getting your husband to vote and going through all of that. It seems that those on the other side, it really is about intimidation. And did you feel that as an intimidation tactic, that someone was watching? When they first called, how did you think of that? Let me ask that first.
Well, when they called the first time, I just kind of rolled my eyes, and my husband just rolled his eyes too. And by the time we got into 4 or 5, he even said, "What the hell are they trying to do? Intimidate me?" I mean, that's an exact quote from him. And I said, I think that's it. I think that they feel that if they keep calling the mail-in voters, that maybe they won't decide to request a mail-in ballot anymore.
Yeah, but you see, I guess this is where maybe I'm just different. But the more you push me, the more you attempt to intimidate me. Now the more I'm going to want to vote, and I'm going to maybe now I'm going to go and do it in person to be defiant. I don't know how this is. I don't know how they think this is going to work out for them. I don't know. It's weird stuff. But any thoughts tonight? Any predictions for how things are going to turn out?
Well, I am hopeful, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why. But
it's a full moon.
Okay. Well, you got to remember, we had a solar eclipse at 5:35 this morning, and on top of everything else, because for days I was going, "Oh, this is going to be an interesting one." Yeah.
Yeah, I was told that was Mastriano's crew burning the mail-in ballots.
It may have been, but one of my husband's predictions was Shapiro's going to get it. And he also is predicting that every Republican in the nation is going to be screaming voter fraud when they lose.
Yeah, but you don't need a crystal ball for that. That's just a given. That's like taking a 2-year-old in the cereal aisle and telling them no cereal for you.
Right. They're going to be jumping up and down, holding their breath. And but I am kind of filled with hope. I think that Shapiro will become the governor for PA, and I'm rather hopeful on Fetterman. And the only other thing I have to say is, if I would have seen the news one more time and had to listen to one of those stupid Republican ads, I was at the point that I had even gave up screaming, you liar, at the TV. My husband was doing it, and I'm looking at him going, oh boy, I rubbed off really well. But hey, all we can do is hope.
There you go. And vote. Alice, appreciate it. Great stuff.
Bye-bye.
That is the one good thing about, honestly, about Election Day being over. And look, I'm a political junkie. The one good thing is, these nonsense ads that are universal. Put in the name, and just these carbon copies of, if it's a black guy, be afraid. There's crime. If it's any other Democrat, it's socialism. Just these cookie cutter ads that you could put any. And when we were in Wisconsin, they were just horrible going after Mandela Barnes on the crime. Because there's a black man, and he might be doing something. Like walking down the street. It's crazy. And at some point, we've got to, as a society, and look, I've got conservative friends who go, the attack ads from both sides are just too much. None of these ads, and this is where my frustration is, and we talked about this on the tour, none of these ads are about how we're going to make people's lives better. It's just that guy's terrible. The other side is bad. And I really want to know what Republicans are going to do. Here's where, if we had a discussion on policy, Democrats would win. You know why? They actually have some. Republicans, they don't. Outside of tax cuts for the very wealthy and deregulation, there's not much substance there. There's not much there to chew on. So they've got to go with screaming and pounding their fists on the table and they're terrible socialists. They've got to do that because there's nothing there. I've asked a couple of people, so how are you going to make people's lives better? Well, Bob, we're going to deregulate, business and unleash the power of business. And you mean to gouge us more? You're going to unleash the power of Wall Street to continue to consolidate corporate America into a handful of companies controlling industries so they can raise prices through the roof and cause inflation? Is that what you're telling me? That's the plan? And that's how you're going to deal with inflation? By making it worse. And the answer is yes. That's the plan. That's the grand goal. I mean, I look at the Wisconsin race, to me, is one of the most obscene. Because I look at someone like Ron Johnson, who is, I don't know how he's electable after his comments on the Oshkosh defense contract. I don't know how he's electable, by a working class when he says, you know what, we don't need those 1,000, 1,500 jobs that would have gone to Oshkosh, Wisconsin. We don't need those union jobs. No, we've got enough already. We have more than enough. I don't know how the working class of that state is going, wait a second, what are you talking about? We've got enough. You mean, good jobs with, good wages and health care and retirement security and job security? We've got enough of that? Where? I don't know how, given that, back in the old day, 10 years ago, you just said that was the end of you. Now he's probably going to win. He's probably going to remain the senator from Wisconsin who thinks that South Carolina, the anti-union South Carolina, should have the jobs that were intended for the workers of Wisconsin. It's beyond me. It's crazy. Again, I look at here, my state of Pennsylvania, I look at someone like Dr. Oz. No platform whatsoever. No idea. You can't pin him down on anything. Same thing with J.D. Vance in Ohio. What's the agenda? What's the platform? Oh, yeah, it's Trumpism. I get that. Okay, fine. What was Trumpism? It was basically a lot of noise. There wasn't a lot of policy there. There weren't a lot of chops there. And this is where the frustration comes in. I look at what Biden's been doing, and I give him credit. We're moving slowly away from neoliberalism and that conservative tax breaks and conservative, whatever corporate America wants. And we're actually talking about how we're going to rebuild our infrastructure. Something that, again, you go back to Obama. You remember the shovel-ready projects? It was the same thing back then. We're going to invest in infrastructure. Did we do it? No, nowhere near enough. And I was screaming back then. The American Society of Civil Engineers back then was saying we needed, a couple of $1 trillion invested in our infrastructure. And did it happen? No, it didn't happen. To where now we're about $4.8 trillion in the hole? Just to get to even? This is where who we vote for matters. This is where who we put into positions of power. This is why that matters. We'll see how the results come out tonight, though. That is the hope. But I'm not happy to see what's going on in Ohio with 50% of the vote already tallied. You've got Vance up 50.5 to 49.4 over Tim Ryan. There's still plenty of time here in Pennsylvania with 1% of the vote in. Fetterman's up 54 to 43. That's a good thing. On the governor's side here in Pennsylvania, with 31%, you've got Shapiro up 60 to 38. Feeling a little bit better there. In fact, some organizations, none that I would consider absolutely reputable, but some are already calling Pennsylvania for Shapiro. That is a good thing. That would be, if you could get the votes counted this evening in the Shapiro camp, that is going to be good for them, because I do believe still it's going to hold that more Democrats voted by mail than Republicans. But I want to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425, as we continue to talk about the election, and maybe we'll get to some results on the other side. Back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1897. That was the day that Dorothy Day, a leader of the Catholic worker movement, was born in Brooklyn, New York. As a young girl, her family moved to San Francisco. Her father lost his job as a sports writer due to the devastating earthquake of 1906, and the family relocated again to Chicago. In 1932, she met Peter Morin, and together they founded the Catholic Worker Movement, a faith-based social justice effort. The Catholic workers opened what they called houses of hospitality to serve those in need. Dorothy helped to co-found the Catholic Worker, a monthly newspaper that became a voice for poor and working people. While writing for the paper, Dorothy traveled and visited with some of the most exploited workers in the country. She talked with migrant agricultural workers in California and was arrested for supporting the United Farm Workers in 1973. In 1940, she visited the Hooverville encampment in Seattle, Washington. Dorothy's reporting vividly demonstrated how her faith informed her activism. She wrote, quote, "The rain poured down. Underneath was mud, ankle deep, and the long lane that cut between the rows of shacks reflected the gray clouds in its pools. But Christ is there. I thought sadly, there in the mud, in the shacks with his poor, with them he is trying to find a place to lay his head. With them he hungers, and with them he suffers fatigue of body and soul. Behold, O God, our Redeemer, and look upon the face of thy Christ, there in the dumps, among the creatures who still are men. Have pity on them and on us, who permit such things to be." Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So some good news coming out of Maryland and Massachusetts. Democrats picked up 2 governor's mansions. One in Massachusetts, one in Maryland. And look, those have been Democratic strongholds for a while, so not surprising. But in what is supposed to be a tsunami wave year, they're pickups nonetheless. Now, the hope here in Pennsylvania that you end up with a Democratic governor, because I come back to this, and as of right now, you've got Shapiro up 60 to 39 over Mastriano, with just over 34% of the vote counted. This is the things that aren't going to happen with a Governor Shapiro. We're not going to be the next no rights at work state, and for me that really is one of the most important parts. And I'll be honest, having talked to a lot of union Republicans, this is one of those things that gives them pause, because they see what the no rights at work agenda does. They see how dangerous it is for working people, because they see what happens in other states, and which is why, again, in Illinois, they're moving forward on that workers' rights amendment, which I'm going to be checking to find what kind of numbers they've got there. But the reality is these elections cost way too much money. I was looking at some of the numbers that were coming out on how much money has been spent on elections over the last the midterms over the last couple of years, and just this obscene amount of money that's being spent, post Citizens United. All of this is because of Citizens United and just unleashing this billionaire money onto our political front. And, for instance, back in 2010, when you had the big Tea Party wave, the billionaire class spent about $32 million on the midterm. You go 4 years, the next 4 years, that 32 million jumps up to $232 million. By 2018, it goes up to 611 million. This right now is over 900 million, almost $1 billion. And it makes me think back to, as I've said before, something my grandfather always said: when the rich people are taking money out of their pockets to tell you what you should be doing, you should be spending $2 to do the opposite. Because what they're telling you is what's good for them, not good for you. So when I see this kind of spending, there's a point at which I think we really do have to recoil from this. Now, some good news coming out of Georgia as well, with 75% of the vote. Raphael Warnock, 49.2%. Herschel Walker, 48.9%. This is close. And it's, what is it? It's 7,000 votes at this point. And you go, how is this close? Given all of the things that we know about Herschel Walker. I mean, how are we in this moment where a guy comes out and says, you know what, hey, and proudly, I struggle from mental illness, so much so that my wife fears I'm going to murder her. How is it that guy is somebody we would consider to put into the Senate? Other than, maybe you hope that, and I gotta think this is the calculus, that he may do that with somebody in the Senate. I don't know. But I look at some of these people and I'm going, I don't know how you get this. I don't know how you get these extremes. Are we this country? Are we this divided? And again, I come back to the month we spent on the road talking with people, both Democrats and Republicans. When you talk about the issues, when you get away from the mainstream corporate-controlled for-profit media, when you get away from the outrage machine of the F Channel and all of their little sister organizations, when you get away from the stuff that's meant to make you angry, we agree. And this is where my mind has been for some time. Someone asked me, several months ago, doing what I do here on this program, do I feel like I'm doing something positive, or do I feel like I'm making things worse? And I said, the reality is, I think what we do here is about moving an agenda that unites us and helps to rebuild the working class. Yeah, I'm very open and honest about that. My goal is always, the true north is always, how do we make people's lives better? And I've always said, the reality is I don't care if it's a Republican idea, a Democrat idea, a Green idea. If it's a good idea, we should be moving on it. The problem is, and again, this is the problem, Republicans haven't had any ideas. 2020, they didn't even bother coming out with a platform. Their platform was basically, whatever Donald Trump wants. This is the frightening part of all this. And you look at these Senate races. I mean, here in Pennsylvania, they've spent over $312 million on a Senate race. In Georgia, over $254 million. Arizona, over $200 million. Nevada, over $186 million. Wisconsin, over $186 million. You start adding all this money up. Think about what we could do with, what is that? That's over $1 billion. Think what we could do with $1 billion to help get, children fed, veterans' homes, health care for people. I don't know anything better than than more divisive ads, more attack measures, more division. Out of this, tomorrow, when people wake up, where will we go? Where will we be? What will we be doing? Me, I'm still going to be talking about how we make people's lives better. How do we build an economy? And this is where I keep coming back to, I think the Democrats need to hone their message. What policies are going to make lives better? Now, it appears as though Republicans are going to take the House. As of right now, they have flipped 4 seats. I think they only needed 5. When that happens, nothing gets done for the next 2 years. Republicans in the House will allow nothing to get done. We know this. They've already said this. And then the fun begins. I guess for the next 2 years, we're going to have chaos. We're going to have, a Republican Party hell-bent on impeaching and all of the things, the revenge impeachments that they have promised, all of the investigations of Hunter Biden and, whatever else they can dream up. And we're gonna live through that for 2 years. But you know what's not going to happen? The lives of working people are not going to get better, not going to be addressed. And you know why? Because the moneyed interests don't want it addressed. They want a working class angry at each other. They want a working class pitted against each other. They want a working class looking at their coworker with a jaundiced eye. They want that kind of division because they know in that environment, nobody's looking at them. You know what we didn't talk about at all during this campaign season? On taxing the Jeff Bezoses and the Elon Musks of the world. We didn't talk about that much at all. I mean, the campaigns. We talk about it all the time because it's something that has to happen. You go back to that great moment, the greatest moment in the country's history. A lot of my MAGA hat friends, where they remind me. That golden era of the 50s, the Norman Rockwell era. High taxes on the wealthy, strong unions, heavy investment by government in infrastructure and in the private sector, and manufacturing, jobs. That's the agenda. And I wish there were a Republican Party that were on that page, so we could be moving in that direction. But it's not. Because corporate America is happy with the way things are. Because they're gouging our eyes out. And they're blaming Joe Biden. Now, I was thinking about this today. You know how much power we have given corporate America to basically run roughshod over our political system because they know how fickle we are. Gas prices went up 10 cents. Crucify the guy in the office. They can do whatever they want. And now with the internet, and now with Russia, who admitted, by the way, that they did interfere in the election, that they do have troll farms and they did do all the things that they were accused of. And now with the Chinese, with TikTok and all of they're not bothering to moderate any of that. It could be easy to believe that we're doomed. Could be easy to believe. But I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. What races are you following? And did you vote today? I want to know. And did you encounter any stuff? Is anybody there watching over your shoulder? Anybody harass, intimidate, anything? Did you get any phone calls? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, Rich Ojeda from No Dem Left Behind and our good friend Sarah Burris from Raw Story are going to be here to share some thoughts and insights on what's going on this evening. Quick break, right back. Stick around.
The clock is ticking.
It's a big week for the planet as UN Climate Conference kicks off in Egypt. Major glaciers to disappear by 2050. Plus,
this is a massive system.
Late season storm Nicole takes aim at Florida's East Coast.
Nicole, all of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
And the biggest threat to democracy is to have someone like Senator Warnock to vote against our Keystone Pipeline.
Okay, A, a pipeline from Canada is not a threat to democracy, Herschel Walker. And 2, Senator Warnock did not vote against the pipeline. It was not up for a vote. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Tessie Doyen, as we go to air, a big day, Election Day, and I'm sure it has nothing at all to do with the climate, correct?
It has everything to do with the climate. But first, as we go to air, the east coast of Florida is under a new state of emergency as a rare November storm, Nicole, heads its way. It's forecast to deluge the state when it makes landfall as a hurricane later this week, even as residents are still trying to recover from deadly Hurricane Ian in September.
Cool.
It is a big week for the planet. Americans are voting in the critical 2022 midterm elections, an inflection point for the nation and the planet that will decide whether the U.S. acts with speed and scope to curb the climate crisis and remain competitive in the global clean energy revolution or doesn't.
Okay, but no matter what happens in the midterms, that $400 billion that the Democrats voted to go towards mitigating climate change, that stays, right?
Right, unless Republicans find some way to dismantle it.
Mm-hmm.
Simultaneously, the latest United Nations climate treaty negotiations, known as COP27, are underway in Egypt to hammer out implementation of the landmark Paris Agreement to keep global temperatures from rising more than 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and transition all economies away from the fossil fuels that are causing the climate crisis. 2 reports released on the opening day of the conference underscore the challenge. The first, from the UN's World Meteorological Organization, finds the past 8 years were the 8 hottest years ever recorded since record-keeping began in the mid-1800s. That means that every year since 2016 has been one of the warmest on record, indicating that the world is now deep into the climate crisis.
Somebody ought to get together and have a conference about that.
The Stark assessment sets out how record-high levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are supercharging extreme weather disasters from Pakistan to China and the U.S. The oceans are hotter than ever. The rate of sea level rise has doubled since 1993 due to the melting of land ice from Greenland, Antarctica, and land glaciers. A different report by UNESCO concludes that because of man-made global warming, major glaciers around the world will be gone by 2050, like UN World Heritage Sites Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania and Yosemite and Yellowstone National Parks in the United States.
Wow.
But if global temperature rise is limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius, the study finds it is possible that only 1/3 of those glaciers will disappear by 2050.
So in that event, we'd still be able to see some glaciers at Yellowstone in 2050.
Maybe.
Of course, I'll be 1,000 years old.
It matters because glacier melt is a primary source of drinking water in some of the most volatile regions in the world. Against the backdrop of costly, record-shattering heat waves, droughts, and floods over the past few months, the COP27 UN Climate Conference kicked off with climate finance taking center stage. For the first time, the agenda includes formal negotiations on how rich nations should compensate poorer nations for the unavoidable impacts of climate change, known as loss and damage.
They have been fighting about this, it seems, for years at these COP conferences.
They have been. This is the first formal negotiations to hammer it out. Developing nations have contributed only a tiny fraction of the greenhouse gas emissions that are causing the climate crisis, but are hit first and worst by its cascading consequences, with repetitive disasters sapping their capacity to adapt to future disasters. Rich nations for years have failed to fulfill their promises to provide $100 billion a year to a fund to help developing countries cut their CO2 emissions and adapt to climate impacts. On Monday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres cited the mounting toll of weather disasters in urging countries to move quickly to implementation.
We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing. Greenhouse gas emissions keep growing. Global temperatures keep rising. And our planet is fast approaching tipping points that will make climate chaos irreversible. We are on a highway to climate hell with our foot still on the accelerator.
Well, hopefully it's a battery electric vehicle. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of
think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as the results come rolling in, again, Dems picked up 2 governors' mansions, Maryland and Massachusetts. Not looking great at this moment for Tim Ryan out in Ohio, but still lots of time there. As for me, that's the race I've been watching. As Vance is up 53.6 to 46.4. With just about 70% of the vote counted. This is, he has the right message, I believe. It's about making workers' lives better. But anyway, here to share some thoughts on this evening's results and, well, maybe where things will end up tomorrow. I've asked our good friend Sarah Burris of Raw Story and Rich Ojeda of No Dem Left Behind to come share some thoughts. Guys, thanks for being here.
Airborne.
Happy election night.
So let's start with you, Sarah. Thoughts? Let's get some optimism. Thoughts? How are things shaking out?
So there are some really wonderful things that I think are super fun. The first lesbian ever to be elected a governor, one in Massachusetts. The first Gen Z member of Congress was elected in Orlando, which makes my heart flutter after working years and years to get out the youth vote. Speaking of youth vote, the great state of Wisconsin had 360% increase in youth vote in early voting. So yay, Wisconsin. And apparently turnout was so big on campus, they actually had to call in for more poll workers to come and help on a bunch of the campuses in Wisconsin. So that's really exciting to hear. My personal, very small piece of information is that I am watching Lauren Boebert's race in Colorado, and Colorado is actually, like, if you're feeling depressed, just go look at the returns in Colorado, because that will make you very happy. Bennett won. The governor's race is like very, 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 very blue. But Lauren Boebert is, so there are a couple of different counties in her district. One of them is more Republican. Her own actual county where she lives, which is Garfield County, voted 58% for the other guy. Granted, that's only half reporting, but I think that's funny because it just means that she gets to walk around town and know that everybody in her neighborhood hates her. So that's cool.
The hope is that would be a pickup there. But Marjorie Trainwreck Green, Rich. She was never going to lose.
It just bothers me that, so many people in this country are so willing to vote for people that absolutely are the worst of the worst. When you have J.D. Vance, who was nothing more than a Donald Trump bootlicker, leading in the polls against Tim Ryan, who absolutely stands with the working class, always have, it's so frustrating, to see somebody like Carol Miller in West Virginia, who is now going for her 3rd term. And, she's done nothing except secure herself a $3.1 million PPP loan. That's the only thing she's done, and it was for her. I just don't understand. I can't believe that right now we're looking at Herschel Walker. These should not even be races. And it's like, all you have to do is claim your undying love for the orange one, and people are going to vote for you, and it's absolutely sickening.
No, I agree with you, Rich. I mean, the thing is there are so many people who you go just totally unqualified. And I look at, Mastriano here in Pennsylvania. Fortunately, it looks like he's getting drummed. But you look at some of Marjorie Green. I mean, come on, just wow.
I'm furious that the Democrats sunk $15 million on that race.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
But see, that's one of the things I'm telling you right now. The DCCC and the DNC need to hold responsibility here. They need to learn how to fight because they absolutely don't. The reason why Republicans are controlling rural America is because the Democratic Party, the DNC and the DCCC, don't want to get off their backsides and do anything for those areas. They just want to let those go, and they want to focus on the bigger areas, the cities, and that's why we have what we have today. And it's absolutely sickening. They need fired, every one of them.
No, and look, I run through this all the time when I talk to my working class friends. They're like, the Democrats only care about the college educated. What about us, the poorly educated? And this is where Trump, reached out to them and puffed up their egos. And look, now we possibly could have, I don't know, the dumbest legislative class in the history of the country being elected.
The poorly educated are now going to be in control for the next couple of years. And it's because why? It's because we don't know how to fight.
Do we need this? Let me ask you, Sarah, do we need to see what's coming? Because I've been saying, look, probably the best thing that's going to happen is Republicans take the House and they do all the things that they want to do. They go on their revenge impeachments. They have their, multiple hearings, all kinds of insanity. And it's just a total giant, S show. Do we need this?
I honestly think that is exactly what we need. To be optimistic, I think the best thing that could ever happen to the Democratic Party is the Republicans come into the House, they vote to shut down the government, and that ends up being a complete S show for, however many weeks that lasts. And I think the second part is that they spend the next 2 years trying to impeach everybody from Merrick Garland to Joe Biden. One of the things that Barack Obama said in Pennsylvania when he did the rally was they're not sure exactly what they're going to impeach him for yet, but by golly, they're going to figure it out. So if they just come up with a couple of dozen and just try all of them, I think that would be really helpful to Democrats. And that's the thing when you start looking at 2024, I think Trump is talking about announcing soon. And he's already trying to stomp on DeSantis. So, if this ends up being a Biden-Trump show again, I think the best thing that could happen is Republicans just spend 2 years reminding Americans why they don't want Republicans in office.
Yeah, and 2 years of no policy initiatives.
Yeah.
And this is where my frustration is nothing's going to get better.
Here's something that bothers me is the fact that, understand that everywhere, the gas issues are a global problem. Inflation is a global problem. The problem that I have right now is the fact that Joe Biden and them have not been reminding people. Just because gas, I got up this morning and watched a person that I grew up with who's an African-American who posted, vote Republican, these gas prices are killing me. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, understand that right now in Lisbon, Portugal, it's $9 a gallon. That's how, and it's that way all over Europe, but it's $3.50 here in America. We're far better than these other places, but you don't hear anybody in the Democratic Party highlighting that. And that's, if you're not going to promote your successes, and make no mistake about it, $3.50 a gallon is a success instead of $9 a gallon. But, nobody wants to say anything about that.
But I think that's going to be a question, too, is once Republicans are in office for a little bit and they're not able to pass any meaningful legislation or any legislation at all, I think then we start questioning, okay, well, you guys said you were going to fix all these things. So where is it?
But they're going to continue screaming that they can't get it done because of the Democrats, and this poorly educated crowd is going to fall for it.
Yep, it's Joe Biden. It's all Joe Biden. They've even got the stickers. They've even got the stickers. No, and this is, look, I still believe there's a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff with corporate America going, hey, there's a great opportunity to gouge, to steal, to rob, to pillage, and to make voters angry at Biden and the Democrats so that when Republicans come into power, they just ungouge us because they're going to get huge tax breaks. I mean, it's heads they win, tails we lose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Congratulations, Elon Musk.
Well, apparently he's had a pretty rough couple of days because he's lost half of the Tesla stock. Half of the value of Tesla has fallen.
Yeah, but have no fear, though, because now, the Republicans are going to come in. They're not going to do anything for the working class.
But the thing is you're talking about, Tesla is made in Ohio, and they've got a whole battery factory that's going in there. Well, Trump just spent, a whole rally last night in Ohio telling people that they needed to get rid of electric vehicles. And it's like, dude, these are people's jobs there. So if you guys are going to go to war against electric vehicles, you're going to start killing actual American jobs in places like Ohio.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I got to take a quick break here. On the other side, I want to get some of your thoughts on some of the abortion measures that are going on that I'm paying attention to in places like Michigan and Vermont and California. I'm going to take a quick break right back after this with our good friends Rich Ojeda and Sarah Burris. Quick break. Right back. If you've got thoughts, questions, comments, want to hear it, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Back after this. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
I'll tell you, going to be interesting if Republicans do take the House. Going to be interesting to see who they throw in where, because you've already got Donald Trump saying he wants McCarthy as Speaker. That ought to be fun and entertaining. Imagine Marjorie Trainwreck Green as the chairman of the Education Committee in Labor. Yeah, that'll be fun too. Train wreck and all. But here are good friends Sarah Burris from Raw Story, rawstory.com, the website if you want to check out her work. Also our good friend Rich Ojeda from No Dem Left Behind. Guys, thanks for sticking around.
Everybody.
You bet.
So I want to get to some of the, because I've been told often that this is Rovember. I don't know that we're seeing it yet. I'm hoping by the end of the night it will be. But there's some measures on the ballot in a number of states that are hopefully going to make abortion legal and safe in places like Michigan, Vermont, and California. You've also got the anti-abortion measures in Montana and Kentucky. Any thoughts on these?
I'll be really curious to see what happens in Montana, because Montana is a weird kind of state. Like, they're a little bit more libertarian and they really don't like the government getting in their stuff. So I don't know how Montana is going to work there, because it's one of those like reddish states that just that likes its personal freedoms. Kentucky, honestly, I have no idea. Like, I haven't seen any polling on that stuff. I think all the other ones, I think they're gonna walk. I wish that, frankly, there were more ballot initiatives like this, because I think that there are states where they would have passed even if they were red states. But, again, that's another failure of the Democratic Party.
Any thoughts, Rich?
Honestly, I hate to say this, but when you was talking, my wife was telling me we're about to flip a seat in Pennsylvania. So what's the question again? Yeah. What's the question again?
Abortion.
Well, I'll tell you, I think Vermont just passed that it's now, going to be protected. The whole thing with row your vote. I mean, I literally believed that, remember, there's more women in this country than there are men. I literally believed that the women were going to go to the polls with a ferocity, and I'm not seeing it. And I don't understand why. To be kicked off the stage of equality and not be willing to get out there and fight tooth and nail for that. Do we have that many women that are willing to just let themselves be treated that way? But apparently we are.
No, I said from the beginning I wasn't seeing the outrage, and I'm still not seeing the kind of outrage that I would feel if you were taking something from me. In fact, most of the younger women that I have talked to, and not a lot, just so my wife knows, they seem to think that they were empowered enough that they would be able to work around it, that it wasn't a big deal. Sarah, your thoughts?
It's weird. I see a lot of it comes down to the states. It really depends on the state, because you see people like, again, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in a lot of those, states that we generally think of as being a little bit purple. You see more women who feel that need to get out and vote for, for their rights. But then you have other states like Oklahoma, where it's like they just sort of gave up, in Texas. Like there were so many women that they interviewed where they were angry. And even if it was something like, yes, I'm angry about the cost of milk, but gee, I don't want my rights to be taken away. That's something that's very strange, that I feel like a lot of the Republicans were saying, oh, people are upset about, gas prices and milk prices. And it's like, I don't feel like women just sort of forget that these issues matter. But I wonder if the red states that already have laws on the books, and where the legislature has basically already decided, this is it. I wonder if the women there just feel like it's hopeless.
Yeah, I look at Kansas, and everyone keeps pointing me back to Kansas, and that the polls were so far off, and that women came out in mass. I don't know that I'm seeing that.
Here's the thing about Kansas. Kansas is such a weird state. That's where I actually first started working in politics, and the abortion issue, because of Wichita and Tiller's clinic being there, it has been an issue for like my whole life. And so this has been a discussion that the state has been having for a very long time. I don't think the nation as a whole has been having that conversation, because so many generations have had the right and the protections. And so maybe it's just that we have to start really having another national conversation about women being allowed to have freedom and liberty as well as men.
So back to where we started. We need the 2 years of beatings. Let the beatings begin. We need the 2 years of misery, is what you're telling me.
Maybe. I mean, maybe that's the only thing that people just need a reminder of what it's like whenever, either you're going to have to live your life with your spouse dying because she's having a miscarriage, in Texas. And we're seeing that over and over and over again. There needs to be more people telling those stories about what's happening.
But now that Joe Biden's going to have the next 2 years of nothing but really a lame duck, next 2 years, I honestly don't know if he's going to be the one, because I mean, if he couldn't have put us on the proper path tonight, I mean, what's he going to do for the next 2 years when they're not going to let him do nothing? The only thing he's going to have is veto power. That's it.
I don't think he should be the voice for that. I think women in the country need to be that voice. We need to have women who are actually living and facing the issue, because it's all well and good to have a president behind you, but he's an old white man. And we need women who all over the country to actually stand up and talk about these issues.
No. You're absolutely right in terms of the abortion piece and stuff like that. But I mean,
everything else.
And I wouldn't mind. Look, I wouldn't mind. I think we're ready for a female president, but who's it going to be? Is it going to be Stacey Abrams, who still loses? I mean, that's the thing, is that the Democratic Party will get behind somebody that has lost multiple times. How about let's get Amy McGrath to run for president? How about we do that? Let's shoot ourselves in the foot today. I mean, just give me a break. Give us somebody.
There you go.
There is a good next generation. Look at Wes Moore. You are going to fall in love with Wes Moore. Talk about one of the best next generation candidates in the Democratic Party. Oh, he's a rock star.
So he's the next Obama, then, is what you're telling me.
I really, really love him. And he has all of, the whole package. He's smart, he's been in the military, and he knows how to dance.
That's all it takes. He knows how to dance. All right. Okay. Because I got to tell you, as I was listening to Obama, stump these last couple of weeks, I'm going, where's that guy in the Democratic Party now? Where's that articulate person? Because look, I love Biden's policies. I love the fact that things have been getting done. He just doesn't have the in this media era. He just doesn't have the chops.
It's been sad. That's been so depressing to see.
Especially that he's hit home runs.
Yeah,
he's actually done a lot of great things. He's hit home runs left and right. But yet, I'm sitting here like we're going into the daggone midterms and it's quiet. If you don't promote yourself, don't expect other people to do it.
No. Look, we were in Milwaukee, and I was talking with one of the state senators there who said, look, there's just this massive enthusiasm gap because people don't know what the administration has moved on. They're not seeing it yet. And, the infrastructure money that hasn't really gotten out yet. And it's one of those things where you go, we should be accelerating this a bit more and then putting up giant 15-foot statues of Biden going, I did that.
Yeah. And I hope for the next 2 years, every time there's a highway that opens, Joe Biden is there. Because it's not like he's going to be able to do anything else.
Yeah.
That's it.
So.
Yeah.
There is that. So I guess the question then becomes, are you guys on the camp that he shouldn't run in 2024? Where are you guys at?
I don't know if it's not him who it is.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's the thing. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is going to be 2 years of pure lame duck. They're not going to let him do anything. And I will tell you, they're going to impeach him. They're going to impeach him every 3 months. They're going to be like, oh, you impeached Trump twice? Well, we're going to get you 6 times. And that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's how it's going to be.
No,
they're going to go after everybody.
You're absolutely right. And so they can continue to feed the outrage candy to the base to keep them engaged and not understanding that they're getting screwed over and their lives aren't getting better. But at least, they'll get their daily allowance of outrage.
Yeah, but the thing is they're going to be able to pump up their base by saying, we would get rid of him, but the Democrats won't let us. And they're going to stay that, we impeached him, but the Democrats saved him again and again and again and again.
And again.
That's where we're at. That's where we're at.
No, I sadly do not disagree. So then how does this turn around? Because look, like I said, I saw Obama out there on the stump. Can you just not keep sending him out?
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that I get the call tomorrow to give a pep talk to the DNC and the DCCC, where I light their asses up.
Honestly, I wish we could just sort of, you remember how we used to treat Bill Clinton like the president of explaining stuff?
Yeah.
I really feel like, especially after watching that Pennsylvania rally, that we should, I don't get why Obama just came out in like the last 5 minutes of the election, but I think we need to be utilizing his comments a hell of a lot more than we did.
Yeah, I keep coming back to why wasn't he out there the last 6 months?
And not on podcasts, right? Like, it's all well and good if you're doing a podcast with Bruce Springsteen, but that's not actually reaching voters.
Right. No, I've been saying this for a while. The one thing that Trump has done masterfully is he's out there. He's putting in the work. He's connecting with people. Doing these rallies is so important.
And that's another problem. Because, I'm sitting here still thinking, how does he get to travel the country and spew the garbage that he does that we know causes people to violence? Can you gag order this guy? Can you shut his mouth? Because apparently they can't.
Nope.
And he runs around and he spews the most, it's nothing but lies. And yet, he's allowed to do it. He has absolutely hurt the Democrats in these races. He has.
No, and we'll get to that on the other side of the break. I got to take a quick break here. Rich, I appreciate the time. Sarah, can you guys hold through the break?
Yeah,
you bet.
We're going to take a quick break here. On the other side, going to talk a little bit about the announcement that almost was, the announcement that may be coming. What's the Trump going to do? Back after this. Stick around. Listen to the Rick Smith Show. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1897. That was the day that Dorothy Day, a leader of the Catholic worker movement, was born in Brooklyn, New York. As a young girl, her family moved to San Francisco. Her father lost his job as a sports writer due to the devastating earthquake of 1906, and the family relocated again to Chicago. In 1932, she met Peter Morin, and together they founded the Catholic Worker Movement, a faith-based social justice effort. The Catholic workers opened what they called houses of hospitality to serve those in need. Dorothy helped to co-found The Catholic Worker, a monthly newspaper that became a voice for poor and working people. While writing for the paper, Dorothy traveled and visited with some of the most exploited workers in the country. She talked with migrant agricultural workers in California and was arrested for supporting the United Farm Workers in 1973. In 1940, she visited the Hooverville encampment in Seattle, Washington. Dorothy's reporting vividly demonstrated how her faith informed her activism. She wrote, quote, "The rain poured down. Underneath was mud, ankle deep, and the long lane that cut between the rows of shacks reflected the gray clouds in its pools. But Christ is there. I thought sadly, there in the mud, in the shacks with his poor, with them he is trying to find a place to lay his head. With them he hungers, and with them he suffers fatigue of body and soul. Behold, O God, our Redeemer, and look upon the face of thy Christ, there in the dumps, among the creatures who still are men. Have pity on them and on us, who permit such things to be." Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
America exists today as a bizarre anomaly. We profess to be an electoral democracy, yet we are ruled by a governmental plutocracy. One especially gross example of this incongruity is the overwhelming power of big money over the people's will. By a wide margin, Americans of all political stripes want to ban the distorting force of huge electoral campaign donations by favor-seeking corporations and ultra-rich elites. Yet, nothing. National and state lawmakers take the plutocratic money and promptly bury democratic reforms that would stop the gusher of corrupt cash. An analysis of donations in this year's congressional races shows that this plutocratic perversion of our politics and government has reached absurd levels. Historian Nancy McLean and public interest advocate Frank Clemente have documented that the two main super PACs trying to put Republicans in Congress got about half of their $188 million election fund from just 27 billionaires. Also, a corporate front that backs GOP candidates, Club for Growth, got nearly $35 million from only 3 billionaires. Thanks to years of congressional stonewalling and the steady partisan stacking of our top courts with corporate ideologues, there is essentially no limits on this purchase of lawmakers. Indeed, the biggest donors are even allowed to undermine democracy in secret, not revealing their identity. Lawmakers elected with this money not only support the billionaires' special interest agenda, which the people don't want, but also are fierce opponents of any reforms to increase voter participation in our governing process, which people do want. This is Jim Hightower saying that's why, for example, efforts to guarantee every eligible American a constitutional right to vote have not moved forward in Congress, even though the great majority of people favor it.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, breathing a little bit easier in my state of Pennsylvania as NBC News is projecting Josh Shapiro going to be the next governor of the state of Pennsylvania, and thank goodness for that. In fact, they're predicting, the numbers now, Shapiro's up by more than 13 points, which, wow. In fact, my county, Cumberland County, which is generally a reddish county, Shapiro has taken thus far with 77% of the vote, up 55 to 43. My wife's giving me the wow, yeah, that kind of a big thing. Now the flip side, we've got the Senate race. John Fetterman is leading in that, just 50 to 47. Still, this is good because they still haven't counted all the mail-in ballots, and are here to share some thoughts on the numbers thus far and some of the other races. Our good friend Sarah Burris, Raw Story, rawstory.com, and Rich Ojeda, No Dem Left Behind. Guys, what do you think of the numbers?
Yay!
Yeah, it doesn't suck.
It's little things in life at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely glad to see Mastriano go down. But
now, you as a military guy, I mean, a lot of the people I know who have been in the military, they're going, no, he's our guy because he was a colonel or something. He's a military guy. You got to be with him, Rich.
Well, no, I don't. It's like Michael Flynn. I mean, they're just people that serve in the military, and when they get out, I just don't understand. I don't understand how anybody that served in the military can look at somebody like a Donald Trump and think leader. Where I come from, leaders led by example. They led from the front. You carried your own rucksack. You carried your radio. You were the first one out the aircraft. You went outside the wire so your troops could see you carrying the same burden. And then, I see these people falling head over heels for Donald Trump, and I just wonder, what type of leadership did you really have?
But it's not looking.
Amen.
It's not looking like the red wave that everyone was expecting, and thus far, it's not looking like, the kind of tsunami that people were thinking either.
Well,
So one of my other favorite things, I'm looking at New York right now. I feel like the media spent so much time talking about, Lee Zeldin's going to win, you guys. Lee Zeldin could really make a go of it. And I'm looking at New York right now, and Lee Zeldin is at 35% with over 50% reporting. That's embarrassing. Like, that is straight up humiliating. So this whole idea that, New York could go down. It's like, no, it's really not. But thanks for causing us some heartache for the last, month.
There's some interesting news coming out of the Philadelphia area, where with 35% of the vote, you have Ashley Enns Ehas, I believe is how you pronounce her name, up on Brian Fitzpatrick, the incumbent,
Ooh.
possibly flipping a seat the other way.
what's the what's the numbers for Boebert?
Yeah, I need to find the. The thing is that the Secretary of State site for Colorado is really a cluster, and it keeps crashing.
Right now,
so.
it's according to Yahoo News, they've got Frisch up 52 to 47 over Boebert.
What's in
71% of the vote in.
Okay.
Oh crap!
Well, look. I mean, that's a victory. If at least we
Even
get
if
rid
it's
of her,
close.
if we get rid of her, that's a big plus. She did bad on a debate and then started screaming. So, yeah, it's gonna be nice to see her. Or if she loses,
I think the big thing too is that, like, when her husband started driving into mailboxes and stuff in their neighborhood. I mean, they're just like, this is beyond the Clampetts, right? This is just like way worse.
Yeah. So I'd say it's white trash at its best.
I mean, I feel like that's an insult to white trash. That's how bad it is. I hail from redneck people, so that's an insult. This is just really, really, really weird people.
Yeah.
This is if you combine the Clampetts with the Schlitz.
What's the numbers in for Pennsylvania with Fetterman ahead?
At this point, you've got Fetterman up in the numbers. Let me quick check. They had Fetterman up 50.4 to 47.1 with what looks like 61% of the vote being counted. They're saying it's obviously too early to call. And look, this is a race I don't expect to be called until probably Friday, once they finally get all of the mail-in ballots. Because I really do think the debate hurt him. And hurt him badly. And I remember, when we started our Working Class Heroes tour, we were in Erie with John and at a rally there. And I remember going after about 3 minutes of him talking, that you got to get him off the stage and you've got to not let him debate, because he was struggling getting words out. You saw the wheels working. he's got a little bit of a way back. And as one of the things that, I read recently, in 4 months, he's going to be, better off. He's in months, he's going to be better off. Right now, the struggle is just getting the words out.
Yeah.
I think too. So I'm looking at the reporting in for the raw numbers of Georgia. That yes, Walker is up. It's a 7,000 vote difference.
Yep.
That's really, really small. And that, I'm looking at the Libertarian candidate. And I think comparing that race to the governor's race in particular, you've got Brian Kemp, who was up 54 to 45 against Stacey Abrams. And Walker can't even get above 50. That is really embarrassing, I think, for Walker if he can't even bring home.
No, I see it completely
voters.
differently. I see it. It's a complete embarrassment to the voters of Georgia that many people would vote for this guy. How many Republicans? Look, seriously. If this. Here's a guy who came out and said, "Yeah, I struggle from mental illness, and my wife is worried that I'm going to murder her. Wife, yeah. That I'm going to murder her." And there are people going, "Yeah, that's okay. No big deal."
Yeah, that's the whole thing with the Donald Trump thing. I really believe that in many people, as long as Donald Trump supports them, they're going to support. I did everything in 2018 that was right. I was actually number one out of all 435 races in flipping red votes blue, and I lost to Carol Miller, who did not campaign, who only did commercials saying, "I'll do whatever Donald Trump wants," and she won. And oh, by the way, she just won her third term tonight. It's just absolutely sickening.
Yeah, going around the Senate, Bennett won in Colorado. You have Tammy Duckworth, who won re-election in Illinois. Those are in Schumer in New York. Peter Welch, now a senator, the Democrat from Vermont.
Who looks remarkably similar to Patrick Leahy, I noticed.
Also, they have no, and in the House in Vermont, I believe they're going to elect the first woman to the House there. This Becca Balint.
What's New Hampshire Senate look like?
At this moment, Hassan has a lead of 55.8 to 42.9.
That is another really interesting race where that was a MAGA candidate who, I think against his better judgment, or against anybody else's better judgment, he spent the last 2 weeks talking about, kids using kitty litter boxes instead of economic issues. 55.8 is how much Hassan is leading by.
But that also tells you how bad it is when and I don't care, I call it the poorly educated. When you've got people that will look past all the major issues and focus on somebody saying that somebody's using a litter box in a classroom, which is absolute garbage. It's no different than the whole thing with the trans. Tell me, how many trans people do you actually know? And the answer is going to be none for most people. Kristi Noem ran on acting like she saved every child in her state from being assaulted in the bathroom. And the truth is, one transgender child over the past 10 years ever even made the news in that state. But make no mistake about it, these people, hey, we don't want nobody in the bathroom with our child. It's just but I think they win.
That is what Republicans do so exceptionally well. Is they do. If they can't win on whatever issues there are, they will create an issue and then figure out a way to tell you who's to blame for it and to blame for it.
You are spot on.
Yeah. Oh, no, and look, we're heading towards a scary time because you saw the attack of Pelosi's husband. Clearly, that was meant for her. You see Donald Trump now calling her an animal. He said, "I think she's an animal to tell you the truth." He said,
because until somebody dies because of Donald Trump's, until somebody dies, nothing's going to happen. He's just going to continue doing what he does. It's a shame.
Well, even then, we've already had people die at January 6th, and it still didn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And what was interesting, I remember the interview, who was it? Harry Dunn said that he was talking to one of his colleagues who said, maybe next time we should actually let them kill somebody, because it seems like they don't really care when we protect them.
So the last line of questioning I want to get into then is, what lessons do we learn? How do we turn a corner? Is it possible to reunite people, or do we just need to have the beatings that are going to let the beatings begin? Sarah, let me go with you first. Is there so far lessons, thoughts? I know there's still a lot of votes to be counted and a lot of absentee ballots and all of that, but at this moment, what are we thinking?
I think the first thing is we need to stop pretending like there is a time to govern and a time to politic, because it seems very much like the last 2 years has been all focused on governing and not explaining to people what we're actually doing. And that is the exact same thing that we saw in 2010 with Obamacare. Obama never went out there and shopped what was in Obamacare and how it was going to help people. He just recognized, okay, in 10 years, this is going to be awesome and you guys are really going to love me. The same thing is going to happen to Joe Biden with the infrastructure package. And I just do not understand why Democrats sort of ceded that to everything else. And I think we've just got to spend, instead of the next 2 years trying to block things or trying to govern, just let Republicans do what they're going to do and go spend some time in the rest of the country. Like, actually go talk to people and start mobilizing people in a way that we haven't before.
That's a good idea. Rich, your thoughts?
I think that people need to go back to the drawing board in many cases. I think that once again, the DCCC and the DNC, I think that they need to hold some responsibility on this. I think that we've got to get out to rural America. You just can't leave it all on the shoulders of No Dim Left Behind, because, oh, by the way, the DCCC and the DNC aren't supporting us. They're not helping us. They're not having a conversation with us. We're the only ones out there trying to flip these races, and it can't be that way. There's a lot of things. I sit and think about the money that was wasted going after Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, with Jamie Harrison and Amy McGrath. And, we could have used that money all across the country and flipped red seats blue. We can't take our eyes off the county commissions, the Secretary of States, the governor races. We can't take our eyes off that, and we have, and we're paying for it now.
No, you're so absolutely right. In fact, as we were traveling over this last month, that's the thing we kept hearing in rural communities across, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Indiana, Iowa. We kept hearing the same thing over, that the Democrats had abandoned those rural communities. And look, there's a lot of good stuff. The broadband issue should be something that you're in those communities saying, hey, look what we're bringing you. And there should be that 15-foot, Biden statue going, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And
that's exactly
not
what
that
it is.
expensive. It's not that expensive to put that billboard up. In the grand scheme of things, that's pennies, but instead, let's spend $150 million on Beto,
So
or $15 million on March.
So you don't think Beto's going to win tonight?
They've already called it.
Yeah. They've pretty much already called it.
Yeah, there is that. Guys, I appreciate the thoughts. I want you to come back in the next couple of days as we find the results and analyze where we go from here. But great having you guys on. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, brother.
You bet. Don't lose the faith.
There you go.
See you, Sarah.
Thanks so much, our good friend Rich Ojeda, No Dems Left Behind, and Sarah Burris from Raw Story. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Gonna take a quick break. Right back to wrap things up. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to The Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute. I tell you, those are two of my favorite people. Check out Sarah Burris's work over at rawstory.com. She does incredible stuff. Also, our good friend Rich Ojeda from No Dem Left Behind. And look, that's one of the things that we found all across our tour. Rural voters saying, look, the Democratic Party's given up on us. They haven't talked about us. Or at least that's what the belief is. I look at that infrastructure bill. There's a lot of money in there for rural America. There's a lot of opportunity to upgrade. The broadband thing is huge. I mean, we went across parts of Iowa where there's nothing. And it shouldn't be. I mean, here's the weird thing. And something, again, I was thrilled to see. I think Iowa had the most windmills I've ever seen in any state. Maybe Texas. But you look at the green energy, huge there. But the green people, not so popular. And you go, how is it possible that the policy of renewable energy, the policy of massive solar farms, massive windmill farms, how is it possible that those are popular, but the idea of renewables isn't because progressives are pushing it? It's bizarre. And this is where I keep saying Democrats need to fight those fights. They need to be in places where they aren't, where they've ceded Iowa, the perfect example, as I talked about earlier in the show with J.D. Scholten. J.D. said, look, Iowa was a strong working class, moderate Democratic state. Kept sending, Tom Harkin to the Senate every term. And now they've gone completely off the deep end because they've been radicalized, because they've been sold one side of the story, and the argument is Democrats aren't doing anything for them, when the reality is, yes, they are. They're just not out there tooting their horn. Something that they absolutely need to do much, much better. But it's going to be an interesting night as the results come in. I'm a little heartened because it hasn't been the tsunami that the Republicans were telling us. If you listened to right-wing radio, they were expecting one of two things: either a massive tsunami because there was a red wave and all that, or tomorrow all we're going to hear is about it was stolen from us. That I can expect. Now, Virginia's 7th congressional district seat was one that everyone's eyes were on as a potential win for Republicans. It appears that Abigail Spanberger is going to hold on to her seat, according to the AP. The Trump-backed candidate. Again, I'm expecting no concessions. I'm expecting, I'm expecting, I was cheated, I was robbed, all election denier stuff. Now, what's scary is, I think it was the Washington Post who just reported that something like 75 election deniers have been elected this midterm, which, again, I threw this out here as a kind of an aside, going, will they believe the results that they won? I mean, if you're an election denier and it's all rigged and it's all bad, kind of wondering. But we're in a very strange moment. But I'll tell you one thing: I'm going to sleep a lot better this evening, knowing that there's no way for Doug Mastriano to claim a victory. There's no way for him to come forth and say, I won and the election was stolen from me, because on the governor's race, it's over. And look, this tells me that there are still a number of Republicans who go, this is a bridge too far in this state. Even if the Republican Party as a whole, not so much. Now, the Fetterman race, going to come down to the wire. And we knew that to start the night, didn't we? We knew that this was going to be a nail biter until it gets to the mail-in ballots. I expect Oz to come out at some point if the numbers put him ahead at the end of the night, to come out and say that he's won. The mail-in ballots haven't been counted. They will not be counted for days. And this is one of those things that it's kind of the inoculation. They're not going to be counted for days. The reason that they called the Shapiro race already is it doesn't look like there's any chance for Mastriano to come back from the kind of deficit he's at right now. That's a good thing. And historic. I mean, in my recollection, there hasn't been a three-term governor, a party holding the governor's mansion in this state for 3 terms in, 100 years. This is a state that, you get 2 terms, they go to the other party, they get a term or 2, and then they go back to the other party. That's how it's been. This kind of interesting. But hope. Again, I come back to the county that I'm in. I'll tell you, I'm shocked that it's still holding with 88% of the vote counted. It looks like Shapiro is going to take this county with 53% of the vote. That gives me some bit of hope. The House races in my area as well, there's fairly competitive at this moment with just 67% of the vote. And again, the mail-in ballots, there is an opportunity for Shemaine Daniels to take out Scott Perry. Again, Scott Perry, because of all his problems with being the guy behind a bunch of the Trump stuff, this could be a seat Democrats pick up. Now, am I expecting? I'm hoping. It's closer at this point than I thought it was going to be. This tells me that even Republicans in this area are unhappy, uncomfortable, that there still are some who are going, you know what? Bridge too far. We need to hold on to democracy. So maybe Pennsylvania isn't as crazy as a state as I was hoping that we weren't. Now, my home state of Ohio, things are not looking great for Tim Ryan there in Ohio. In fact, you've got Yahoo News has already called the race for J.D. Vance. It's wow. Frustrating, angering. How is that possible? But here we are. Want to know your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Is the results that we're seeing what you expected? I'll tell you, there's part of me that goes, the Rovember voters did come out, because for all intent and purposes, this should have been a tsunami election. This should have been a total blowout, because inflation has got everybody on edge. And though it's not Biden's fault, though it's not the Democrats' fault, it's not the policies that they moved, it's not their fault, it's who they get held accountable. That's how it is. They're in office, they're the ones held responsible. This should be a tsunami election. This tells me that a lot of people came out to vote because it is the Rovember effect. But also, I got to think just how crazy and extreme the Republican candidates have been. That for me is going to be what we see these next couple of days, and just how many seats that the Republicans pick up in the House, and if they control the House. It's still not a foregone conclusion, because there's still some races that the Democrats could pick up. But at this moment, I think there are 5 that Republicans have picked up. We'll know more. We'll know more tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in. Interesting night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.